Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Preacher Boys podcast. It is the most wonderful time of the year. Yes, because it's Christmas, but also because it's the time of year where we get to check out our 2024 Spotify Wrapped. And so today, I have two things I'm going to look over. One, I'm going to look over my 2024 Spotify Wrapped for the Preacher Boys podcast, but I'm also going to be checking out my YouTube year in review, and I'm really excited to share some insights from both of those with you and discover some of them for the first time myself. So let's get into the 2024 wrap. Now, for what it's worth, I did read a little bit of this before recording, and it was a little clunky on my phone. So we'll see how this recording actually goes. But I'm excited to get into some of the data. So I had a 26% increase in listeners. I had a 109% increase in streams, and I had a 45% increase in followers. And I have to say, it's really cool being now 4 years into the show, 5 years, I think, maybe, that I still have people that are discovering the show for the first time, and people that, email me and say, oh, I just heard about your show for the first time and I'm finally checking it out. It's really cool to see that. And it's cool the show's still growing, honestly, because I didn't expect that when I started the show. Give it up for new fans. Really excited to have you guys here. 64% of my listeners discovered me this year, which again is mind-blowing when I read stats like that. And the fans have a clear favorite episode. I saw this stat. I don't understand how this is right. I looked at the numbers for the year, but it makes sense that this would be the most popular episode. Sadie Carpenter from the Leaving Eden podcast, which is a absolutely incredible show. And Sadie does a great job on that show. Spotify says that her episode was listened to 999% more than my average episode. Again, I don't know where it's pulling that number from, but it's no surprise that it would be a top episode. And if it is 999% more than the average episode, it's totally understandable and fantastic. But yeah, this is the clear front runner for most popular episode of the year. If you listen to this episode, really quickly, drop a comment if you're watching on YouTube and let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear your take and why this episode stood out to you. So the next piece Spotify is asking is, ever wonder who your audience is? Well, it's you if you're listening or watching this episode, but let's break it down. This is the part that's always wild to me as well, is the age demographics that listen to the show. So right now, 18 to 24-year-olds make up just 5% of the audience for Preacher Boys. I don't know if it's because they don't listen to as many podcasts, if they're not on Spotify as much, if they're more on YouTube, but it's only 5% on Spotify. 25 to 29-year-olds make up 13% of the show. 30 to 34-year-olds make up 18% of my audience. 35 to 44-year-olds are showing up in big numbers. 33% of my audience, and 45 to 54-year-olds are 17% of the audience, and 55 and up is a shocking 14% of my listeners. And so it's always interesting when I have 5% of my audience is Gen Z and 14% is the 55 and up. I really think it's interesting what age demographics the show is actually resonating with. Listeners ages 55 and up grew the most by 68%. I know this is for Spotify. If you're listening on YouTube, let me know if you are 55 and up, what drew you to the show and why you're listening. Now, where in the world have you been? This is always really neat, seeing this in my Spotify Wrapped. So in 2024, your show traveled the globe. Let's see where it ended up. We were streamed in 63 countries. The United States was the top country. USA. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, wait. Is that it? That's all the data they're going to give me? I thought they would show me like my top 10 countries. Oh, well. Whatever, Spotify. Fans have great taste, obviously. Other than my show, they also loved the Leaving Eden podcast, which checks out. So, Sadie, we need to do more episodes together because obviously you're a big draw. You're a big name. Leaving Eden podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience, Digging Up the Duggars, which I don't think I've heard of that show before, but it makes sense. Behind the Bastards, Knowledge Fight is number 5. So number one is the Leaving Eden podcast. Number 2 is The Joe Rogan Experience. Number 3, Digging Up the Duggars. Number 4, Behind the Bastards. And number 5 is Knowledge Fight. This is one of my favorite pieces here. This is what my audience most likes. So number 1 is pop. Number 2 is country. And number 3 is classical for my audience. Audiobook genres, biography and memoir. I'm sure that if you've taken some recommendations from the show, you've ended up in this category quite a bit with people like Tia Levings, Bethany Joy Lentz, and so on. The number 2 favorite audiobook genre for my audience is religion and spirituality. And number 3 is mystery and thriller, if real life true crime is not enough for you. And they didn't just listen. 73% of my audience watched video on Spotify this year. Hopefully you're watching video right now if you're listening on Spotify. That is a new addition to the show, and it's definitely seeing the show grow in really big ways. So really excited about that. Spotify says, shout out to your biggest fans for keeping you at the top of your game. I'm a top 10 podcast for 2.1 thousand fans, which is super cool. I'm a top 5 show for a little over 1,000 fans. I'm the number 1 show for 259 shows. If I'm your number 1 show, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And the top fans listen to me 3.6 times more than your other listeners. You guys are the real ones. What kind of creator am I? According to Spotify, I am a... What are the options here? I can't even read that. Storyteller. Okay. That's all it's going to tell me, but great. Your fans have entered the conversation. Podcast rating was a 4.6. We need to bump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. And the Preacher Boys podcast. Thanks for giving people something to talk about. Oh, that's it. See, I told you it's going to be clunky. If you give your fans something to talk about, keep the conversation going and share with your fans. Well, here I am. This is me sharing my Spotify Wrap. What do you think about these stats? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments of this video. And while you're taking a second to type that out, let me go ahead and pull up my year in review for YouTube. And that way you guys can take a look over that with me as well. All right, so Spotify was kind enough to give me a 2024 Wrapped. YouTube was kind enough to give me a year in review. So this is for the main YouTube channel, not the Clips channel. I'll share that in just a moment. But this is my year in review for 2024. I had 5,651 new subscribers join in on the YouTube channel with 1.2 million views, which is just mind-blowing because when I started the show, I was hoping like a couple hundred people would listen by the end of the first year. And so to hit 1.2 million views is amazing. 238 video uploads. When I saw this number, my immediate thought was, I would love to do 365 videos next year and just do, a full year's worth of video content, but that's pretty ambitious. But we're so close in this year. 30.2 thousand likes, 6,696 comments. If you're ever wondering why I don't respond to all of my comments, that's why. And 10,000 shares. The most viewed video was a episode I did on a Law and Order SVU episode that was heavily based, if not directly influenced by the Duggar family. And that video had 4,532 hours watched, which is absolutely wild. And my top short was about Stephen Lawson removed as the pastor of Trinity Bible Church in Dallas, with 596 likes. And then my top live stream, we're not going to talk about, because I don't want to reopen that can of worms. So that was for the main channel. Let's go ahead and look into the podcast clips channel. I'll go ahead and share that right here. The clips channel, if you're not already subscribed, is really just short form content taken from the long full episodes. And so there's a couple great clips on there that have done really well this year. Got 615 new subscribers, 98,000 views on that channel with just 60 uploads, 2,705 likes, 530 comments, and 398 shares. The most viewed was a video called The Conservative Dilemma. I pulled that clip from my interview with a really great guest. Where's the book? Scott Coley was the guest. And it was a clip where we were talking about his book, Ministers of Propaganda. And if you haven't seen this clip, I'll link to it in the show notes of this episode. But The Conservative Dilemma was the most viewed clip from the Preacher Boys podcast, 1,036 hours watched. And the actual title, if you want to watch it, is Why People Keep Voting Against Their Interests by Scott M. Coley. And then the top short was one from another author who I've had on the show who's absolutely amazing. And her name is Sandy Kirkham. She wrote a book called Let Me Pray Upon You, and a really powerful episode. And so that short did really well. But yeah, that's some of the big stats from this year. What would you like to see more of in the coming year? What was your favorite personal episode? And how long have you been listening? Like, any thoughts on any of those questions? I would love to hear. If you have any insights on the stats that I just read. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment below. I think Spotify has a comment feature as well. You can try that out. And I'll probably start going through those more regularly as well. But thank you so much for everybody who supported the show and has been watching. I know it'll probably be a lot less watching today just because we're getting into the holiday season. And so I figured this was a nice little, Christmas bonus episode before we start diving back into our regularly scheduled content. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, listening, supporting. It means the world to me. And I really mean it when I say I cannot believe when I see that, millions of views are, being had by these videos, and thousands of people are tuning in and listening to the topics that we're covering every single week that are so important. So thank you so much for watching, and have a Merry Christmas. I will connect with you guys after the holidays. Talk soon.